Good evening if you're watching live. Welcome to episode 194 of the About the Cards podcast, live tonight on YouTube, as always, with host Stefan Loeffler at Junkwax Twins.
Oh, hi.
Myself, Ben Wilson, at Our Trading Cards. We're a podcast by collectors for collectors. We're hoping to bring you a smart and insightful podcast discussing trading card collecting. All cards tell a story. What stories do your cards tell? We are live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific.
And 10 Central.
On YouTube. You can follow us on the Twitter and the Instagram at About the Cards. We're available as a podcast everywhere you can find one.
Usually by the weekend.
Usually by sometime within the same fiscal quarter. A couple of quick announcements. We need some prayer, thought, and good vibe warriors. John at T_V guy on Twitter was in ICU as of Tuesday for sepsis. His dad, Chuck, tweeted out, please keep John in your thoughts during this time. While he's in the hospital and during his recovery. He's a good collector, and it's always tough to see one of our own going through any type of medical related issue, personal issue and otherwise. So depending on what your thoughts are on prayers and thoughts, just kind of keep him in your mind, send some good thoughts his way. And then unfortunately the NHL mourned the passing of, is that Gene Potvin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the age of 72, he had an 11-year NHL career. Brother of Dennis and Mark. He played for the Kings, Flyers, Islanders, Barons, and North Stars. It looks like two of those five teams no longer exist.
If the Barons name doesn't sound familiar, I think they played 2 or 3 years and got swallowed by the North Stars.
Which ended up becoming the...
We don't talk about them.
And then we have a special guest, a really big guest, a hobby icon. Welcome back, special guest host Ben Aguirre at Cardboard Icons. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys?
Hobby or cardboard icon?
He is a hobby icon that goes by Cardboard Icons. Okay, just checking. So it's been a while since you've been on. I know you've been busy collecting with your son. I want to ask a couple questions about that as well. What's new in your world of collecting?
Well, I'm just chugging along. Trying to figure out how we're going to do 2022 season here. Just staying on top of the Stadium Club releases, finishing out my Stadium Club Chrome sets, and looking forward to see what's coming out this year.
I know your son Tony is how old now? 10, 11?
He's 11.
Gotcha. Okay. He's a big Matt Chapman fan, and unfortunately for A's fans, Chapman headed up to Canada this morning, part of the trade that sent him to Toronto. We were talking a little bit before the show. As a dad of a young collector who's still developing his PC, what advice are you going to give to him as he makes a choice of how to follow Chapman's collecting career?
Yeah, I think I thought about this a lot this morning because I had to break the news to him right as he woke up. And I think my advice is for him to do whatever he wants to do. I've had a couple players, that I PC that have bounced around to different teams, and I chose to stay with them. But I don't want to force my son to follow a guy that he actually can't go see every week. So I'll leave it up to him. If he decides to stay with him, I'd absolutely encourage it. One of the guys I collected, or still collect actually, is Roger Clemens, and some of my favorite cards of him are actually not in a Boston uniform. Some of them are actually in Toronto uniforms. So we'll see what he decides to do, and I'll support it. If he wants to stay with just the green and gold, I'm good with that too.
If he goes outside in the Toronto winters, he'd be a chapped man.
Heyo. The interesting part, if Tony's going to collect long term, right? He's 80 years old, still collecting cardboard, and hopefully the hobby is around that long for him to make that choice. And every other young collector, this is a good thing for him to have to decide. It's a good fork in the road as a collector of, you kind of grew up with this player since he is a newer collector over the last few years. Yeah. He's had Chapman available since 2017 as an A, and now he'll be gone. He'll still be in releases through most of this year as an A, at least through the summer. But getting into Series 2 and beyond, you'll start to see him in blue. And it's always a tough decision, especially as an A's fan with these players moving so frequently. It'll be a decision maybe that he makes for Chapman one way that he'll make for other players down the road differently.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We were at a show this weekend, and he ended up picking up a couple of Chris Bassett cards, which is funny because Bassett had already moved on at that point. So I was kind of surprised to see him do that because for some other guys, he just kind of started to shake his head and say, I don't want him anymore. So we'll see what he decides to do.
Well, and Herman Bryant, who's been on the show before, 3B Collection, is in the chat room. He's a Freddie Freeman super collector. So the news of Matt Olson going to Atlanta earlier in the week, and I want to get into this a little bit more in the Hobby Talk section, pushes Herman, who's, our age. He's in that same boat. What do? Do you keep that Freeman collection going? Like you mentioned, Roger Clemens. I collect Mark McGuire. Do you PC those players outside of their main team? A little different for guys that are now retired, because if Chapman has another 10 years, who knows how many teams ultimately he plays for. Freddie Freeman, ends up going to the Dodgers, for instance. That might be a tough thing for a Braves fan versus if Freeman ends up signing with an American League team, and a lot easier perhaps to root for him if he's in California, Cleveland. Texas, Cleveland. Yeah, it's, and we can only make those decisions for ourselves, and there's no right or wrong answer. The right answer is whatever you choose, but you have a unique perspective with him being so young, much newer to the hobby, and being dad is saying, okay, this is a decision I made for myself. The guidance outside of just being the financier of whatever choice he makes.
Yeah. We're kind of fortunate in that the A's aren't the only option for any sporting teams around us. I mean, thankfully the Warriors are good, so that'll kind of ease the pain for him as we go forward with the A's, or because that's his team. The A's are his team. He enjoys watching them, but now we're going to turn it on and not really know who the hell we're looking at. He's not going to know anyway. So we'll see. I mean, I'll just let him make his own decisions because I don't want to force him, because ultimately it is going to be his decision. And whether or not he continues to do this, for 15, 20, 40 years, I want him to make those decisions and live that experience.
And, it's a unique opportunity for him too, since the A's are getting so many young prospects. They have Nick Allen, Tyler Soderstrom already in their system, that as he ages over the next 2 or 3 years, he can kind of grow up with this next wave and decide which players, he wants to continue to collect.
Yep.
He can keep his Chappie collection going. He can scale it back. So, but it's fun because we're in our 40s. Steph's a little younger than us, but he's preteen. We're all in the Herman, I think, is a late 40s. We're all in the same boat. We're literally the same collector. It's just our variables are different, the player and the teams, but the same decisions, regardless of. And so, we'll be excited to kind of see what he ends up choosing, and definitely let us know.
Yeah, sure.
You and I have gone. I have very strong opinions on certain topics.
Sure.
As do you. And there's always been a mutual respect between the two of us with our difference of opinions. And a lot of times we end up on different sides. I'm very particular about this particular one, which is grading one of ones. Let's start there.
Sure.
My opinion, line in the sand, there's never a reason to grade a 101. It offers nothing. The downside is far worse than the upside. Your opinion is the opposite, I believe, more or less. So
protection.
Why should you grade a 101?
Well, first off, you don't do grading anyway. So I mean, anything graded is not going to make sense to you at all. And it's not that I feel like all 101s need to be graded. I think that it doesn't necessarily kill it. I think it's nice to have, a 1 of 1, 1 authenticated, 2 protected, and 3 with, in a pop report somewhere. I'm not big on pop reports, but it is nice to see it, I guess, showcased in a way, whether it be with any of the top 3 companies or if you use one of the other ones, so to say. So it's not that I feel like they all need to have, protection in that way. I just don't think that it kills anything. I don't think it hurts necessarily as much as I think the argument that you like to put out there.
I mean, can we at least agree that the majority, and it could be 50.1% versus 49.9%, but the majority leans towards the purpose of grading is to create an appreciation value beyond the card at raw plus the cost of grading. Can we at least agree there?
I agree, and I will absolutely say that's not why I grade my stuff. So
Not you, but
I'm in the minority on that. But yeah, no, I think that a lot of, well, I guess should we say people or the amount of cards submitted? Because I think that there are a lot of things that are submitted purely for the purpose of increasing the value anyway.
Right.
And whether or not you decide to grade something a 1 of 1, an autograph, whatever, there are lots of different reasons.
So let me rephrase the question and see if you'll agree with this caveat.
Okay.
I have a 1 of 1. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got this card. It's a 1 of 1.
Okay.
And I want to sell this. So I'm going to grade it with the intent of getting it on the pop report and increasing its resale value, its appreciation value on the secondary.
Okay.
That's the sole reason. Now, if it doesn't come back highly graded,
mm-hmm.
will you at least agree that you're going to potentially do more damage to the secondary value? Because now there's a record of it coming back. There was that card that came back a while back, and it was like a 7 or something. I forget, it was a LeBron or highly sought after, and it got a really bad grade. And it's like, you can't crack that and resub it because everybody's going to know it got a 7 at one point.
Sure.
I mean, at least with that caveat, no encapsulation, no protection, no personal. I like the way it looks. Just I'm reselling it.
So if you're subbing it, you get back a 7 on something modern of a 1 of 1 that's not a printing plate. You really got to ask yourself a bunch of questions. What did I miss? So yeah, in theory, you were right. If I sub something and it comes back a 7, it could lose value. However, it could lose value, but it really depends on what it is, right? Because you're a Maguire collector, super collector, right? Do you chase 1 of 1s?
I have one. I got it for a really good deal from Brent. It was a super fractor from whatever year, 4 years ago, when they did 1984 design on all their silver packs.
Right.
No, I don't chase 1 of 1s because I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah. See, I don't chase my PC guys that way either. But I think that there are a fair amount of people who, go hardcore after their guy. Let's say it's David Peralta, whatever. Somebody who's relatively cheap. Right? Let's say for some reason David Peralta is your guy. You're like, dude, I gotta have the super fractor. I don't care, whatever. Oh shit, there it is in a PSA 7. It's like, it's not gonna matter to me. I'm gonna pay for it anyway. If that were my guy, I collect Carney Lansford, right? So if I see a super fractor Lansford raw or a 7 for $100, I'm gonna buy it anyway. It doesn't matter to me because it's the only one that exists. So It really depends. It really does depend. Now, if you're talking like, I don't know, let's say it's a Wander Franco, right? Because that's like the guy, right? So right now. So if it's a Wander Franco, it's a 1 of 1. You can sell it raw for $1,000, but let's say $1,000, and a 7, it pops up. You're like, oh shit, someone's only gonna pay $450 for it. I mean, yeah, you could lose value on it, I suppose, but I do think that 1 of 1s they're always interesting because people have different motivations. It's not all about it's got to be a gem mint or it's got to be mint. The fact that it exists and I can own it, maybe the only reason I want to pay for it. So.
Yeah, I mean, any topic gets into a very gray area when you really think about it, because we're all individuals with individual. We just talked about Tony. What decision he makes for Chapman is going to be different than me, who also collects Chapman. Not, I'll super collect like a Diamond Kings from Donruss, but outside of that, I'm not chasing rainbows of his. But,
right.
Again, I collect the A's. He collects the A's. I collect Chapman. He collects Chapman. We might come to completely polar opposites. Again, it's the right decision for us, respectively. Everything really in this hobby is individualistic when you really think about it. Why grade a card at all? Well, I want to spend $100 to throw it across the street and see if the slab breaks. I mean, if that's what you want to do, right? I mean,
right.
At the end of the day, we make a lot of blanket assumptions, and a lot of it's just for conversation. It's not meant to be as serious as sometimes people take it on Twitter. Because I always get accused of, that. Oh, you're being so serious. It's like, it's really my writing style, because I'm not at the back end of that computer like typing like, damn this guy, let me kick my garbage can across the room. It's like, it's never serious. It's just a conversation. But I like that we disagree on this topic and we can discuss them like adults.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong. Even if I say there's no reason, doesn't mean that's definitively the way. But I think most people could, in the abstract, if we're just objectively looking at this, can agree.
Yeah.
If the sole purpose is to grade it with the intent of appreciation value, you better make damn sure that card's coming back a 9.5 plus, because otherwise you're going to do damage to the secondary value. You might as well sell it raw and allow the buyer to make the decision if they want to encapsulate it for their personal, or I'm buying it speculating that I'm buying it for X and I'm hoping it goes to Y and it's on the upward trajectory. But the other one, another big topic that you and I have discussed, and it does center around things like the Maguire Olympic card in a way, is, you have pre-rookie cards, PRCs, which in my opinion is anything that comes before their true rookie card. So anything Wander Franco that came before Series 1, including the Bowman Best, in my opinion, is a pre-rookie card. Okay, then you have the true rookie card. Don't shake your head. I'm just saying, in my opinion, because I want to see your counter argument to this.
Sure.
The true rookie card for Wander is going to be the 2022 Series 1. Anything else released this year is an XRC, extra rookie card, and that's Topps Living and Throwback Thursday because they were just released.
Yeah.
Heritage, et cetera. Okay, so that's my opinion. You got PRC, TRC, XRC. Go ahead and tell me why I'm wrong or why you think differently.
You and I don't agree on the definitions. In fact, you just brought up, like, what the hell's a PRC? Okay, well, who uses that? I don't use that. I mean, and not to say that I'm the only one, but I mean, generally speaking, I don't hear anybody talking about PRCs. We hear XRC because that's something we learned in the 80s. But, it's a rookie card or it's not. That's kind of how it is. Now we have First Bowman that, people chase as kind of like a rookie to a degree, but I'm like, you're also of the belief that only a Topps card can be a rookie card. Only a flagship card can be a rookie card. That is where your foundation of your rookie card definition is that. Am I wrong?
Not entirely, because I know we have exceptions like Maury Wills.
Sure.
And then you have all of the great 60s where Lou Piniella had like 18 different rookie stars throughout his career. I think they're still making them, like 2022 Lou Piniella future star. But then again, we get into guys like Jose Canseco, which kind of is another asterisk because he had the Topps traded, which is considered an XRC. Then that would mean that his Donruss or Fleer, but see, then his Fleer was with Eric Plunk, and a Fleer update was by himself. So then that means that the Donruss rated rookie becomes the true rookie card. And it goes back to the point where until we can all agree on what a true rookie card is, if there ever is going to be one, we can't,
I got a perfect one for you.
I mean, Randy Arozarena is going to be like 73 still getting rookie cards. That guy's had rookie cards for years.
Yeah.
Which one is a rookie? I hit the camera button here.
Okay, what are you showing?
02 Topps, Joe Mauer, Topps Total Joe Mauer, and 02 Bowman.
The answer is all three.
I mean, yeah, they're all rookie cards, right? That's like when people are like,
you just said it.
I just said it though. PRC has RC in it. So does TRC and XRC. RCRC. RC Cola doesn't. They're all rookie cards. You're right. They're all. But if we were to designate, if I said, and again, it's a subjective question. If I said, what one Wander Franco rookie card should I buy? Then it's like, well, pick the one you like.
Well, if we're talking rookie cards, there's only one.
Yeah, it's Bowman Best last year, right?
It is. But here's the thing: the Wander Franco is like that's the current year like issue where the definition of rookie card is all over the place, right? Because everyone's like, "Oh my God, look! I have this Topps card. It's got the logo on it. It's the rookie. Just buy them both. Yeah. Just buy them both. I mean, you can just own them both. We don't have very many examples where the second year card with the rookie logo whatever is more expensive than the first. We don't have a lot of those. Just own them both.
Think of certain card 311 that is.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's 52 is special, right? Because and no one called it. We shouldn't be calling that card a rookie card anyway. However, it's the first Topps card, right? So it's got a following for a reason, and it's double printed, right? So on the sheets it was double printed. Sure, some ended up in the river, but whatever. I mean, we're never.
What I know this.
You have like 5 like letters before the RC that you have, and I basically operate with 2: rookie card and XRC, and that's kind of it. That's everything else is a prospect card essentially. Prospect, or after that, it's just the current active career card.
So what you're saying is the P doesn't stand for pre; it stands for prospect rookie card.
No, I don't use PRC anywhere.
Doesn't matter. That's what you just said. You said everything before it is a prospect card, therefore it's a prospect rookie card. PRC. We're just using. Well, it's like. I'm being facetious.
That's okay. I'm looking for a Bowman card sitting over here. So here's the thing. So I run into this problem. I've run into it for about 15, 20 years now for my own collection, because I've long fancied myself a rookie card collector, right? So every time I open products, I set aside the rookie cards or the prospect cards or the cards with logos on them since 06. So I always separate those, but I label the boxes rookies and prospects. That's kind of how I label it. It's not just all rookies. It's not all prospects. It's rookies and prospects. So I have the Bowman, and then I have true rookie cards, or I have anything with the prospects stuff on there. So because that's where the interest is, and that's how I like to sort things, whatever. But yeah, I don't use and this is where I think we get into a little semantics, because we used to have identifiers in Beckett, because Beckett was our Bible, right? We had first Bowman card, FBC, and then we had first Topps card, FTC. We had that for a couple of years in the 80s. And I wouldn't mind seeing that again, but the problem is we're all over the place on this stuff. So the definitions that you use and the 3 initials that you use aren't necessarily ones that even exist in my mind. So,
which is fair. And I know that if I want to fire you up, I just have to mention those. If I want to fire up like the entire Twitter, I just got to mention painter's tape. So it just depends on
painter's tape is always acceptable.
I just want to. Who do I want to pick a fight with today?
Well,
if I want to pick a fight with Uncle Rich or Bo,
just one. Are you doing just one today, or are we doing 50? Come on, man.
Depends on. I don't know. It's like Will Ferrell in Old School. I don't know if I'll have time.
Yeah. I don't have time for this today.
Yeah. It's like, shoot. I mean, I mentioned something earlier today that turned into just a rabbit hole of people misreading a narrative, and I was like, I don't have time for this, but at the same time, I do.
So 2 things to that. One, Herman replied back stating that he's given a serious thought over the last couple of days and have come to the conclusion that he's still unsure. Like you said, if he goes to the Dodgers, it's going to make it kind of hard, and I'd be good with anyone but the Dodgers, Yankees, or Twins. And one, rude. Second of all, no, I kind of feel this, and I was going to ask you guys during that segment. Mm-hmm. Who was the first player that made you question your collection? Because for me, as a 10-year-old, is with Kirby Puckett's retirement. I didn't get a chance to keep collecting because, he was retired. So you two?
Well, while you think about this, Ben, I'll say Yoenis Cespedes. And the reason is I got out of collecting when my parents got divorced in 93, 94. So Canseco had moved on already, but McGuire was still there. He's still my guy. And, Stuart Eckersley, I think, was there through 95, if I'm not mistaken. And so some of the late 80s teams were still around. And most of the players were still in the league at some capacity. When I got back into the hobby in 2010, Cespedes was really the first guy I latched onto in 2012. And I mean, my collection is damn near complete, down to, with the exception of printing plates. I have a ton of 101s. I'm literally, things that are numbered over 1 of 1, I'm missing like 5 or 6 cards for every rainbow for 3 years, including all short prints and everything. It's that complete. And when he got dealt, in 2014 for John Lester. It was just devastating. Then I latched on to Ryan Healy, gone. Then you latched on to Matt Olson and Matt Chapman, gone. And so I guess for me it'd be Cespedes.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it was Clemens, honestly, when he went from not from Boston to Toronto, but when he signed with the Yankees. I really had a hard time buying or trading for Clemens Yankees cards. I mean, Clemens was still my guy, but I was like, do I really want to spend any more money in this? Because I am not enjoying this look. I happened to see him pitch his first game as a Yankee. That was opening day in Oakland in '99. But I just could not stomach it. And it really wasn't until probably 5 to 7 years later that I kind of settled down on that. I just couldn't do it. So thankfully I had other things I was collecting. I was really big into my rookie card collection, not just baseball. At the time I was doing basketball and football too. So I had other interests to kind of keep my mind and also my money. But yeah, Clemens was a tough one for me when he moved on from Toronto.
So I have one other topic that you and I did not see eye to eye on while it was happening. And it's one prime example of something we see all the time. So we see this quite frequently. This one felt like it was almost the same story, different day, but this one was on steroids. And that was the Joe Burrow bubble of a month ago.
Yeah.
Because my point was there, again, there's a 2-week window pre-Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And we know that football is all about quarterbacks. It's all about speculation. It's not the same as baseball in that regard, despite the player. That's why it was interesting to see Micah Parsons have a pretty robust and healthy market this year for being, of all positions, a linebacker, not a running back or receiver, another skill position. But my point was, if you're buying Burrow in the 7 to 10 days leading up to the Super Bowl, it's already too late. And my reasoning behind it was, first off, he was the first overall pick, not 5 years ago, but last year. So here's a second-year guy. He got injured halfway through his rookie year. That would have been the time to swoop in when the market dips during his injury in the offseason, right around the NFL draft, when we have not one but 5 new first-round quarterbacks that are going to take the star. Then he goes off and has 800-plus yards in the final 2 games of the season. Heading into the playoffs, they clinch the division. That's when you buy if the market is still soft. You had multiple times to buy where he had a dip, and then all of a sudden he goes on this playoff run, and he eliminates this team and this team and this team, and it's like, whoa, let's go ahead. Now I'm buying, and it's like you're already buying somewhere along the upward trajectory. Mm-hmm. Maybe not at the final point, but somewhere, speculating on this kid winning a Super Bowl, and then you had thoughts to the contrary.
So I think this goes back to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. Everyone has different motivations for buying, right? Now, if you're talking strictly on a financial, level, I have no argument with what you said. I have no problem with it. Thing is, I don't necessarily believe that everyone who buys stuff 2 weeks, before the Super Bowl is looking to buy something now because they think it's going to be 5x later. And we're talking about the Bengals, who hadn't been to the Super Bowl since fucking 89, I think, right? Sorry, pardon my language. It'd been, 20, 30, 24 years, 23 years. Actually, 33 years. Wow. Anyway.
For the record, you're forgiven for saying the Bengals and the Super Bowl in the same sentence. I'm assuming that's why you said pardon your language.
Yeah. But, I mean, it had been a generation, or 2, depending on how you count it. But it had been a long time since they've been to the Super Bowl. So, there are different motivations for buying. I don't blame anyone for getting caught up in the moment to buy stuff. I mean, it's not always the financially right decision. I mean, we already know that going into the Super Bowl, anyone involved there is going to be much higher than it had been 2 weeks earlier, 2 weeks prior to that. But I think that some people do legitimately buy just to buy, and even with Burrow losing, I mean, he's still the guy who took that team to the Super Bowl first time in 33 years. My math's off. So, if you're looking at a financial way, I don't have an argument with it, because you're right. I mean, it's not like it came out of nowhere. It's not like it was Kurt Warner walking into the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like straight off the street. We knew this guy was going to be good, or at least we already knew the name and the values were up already. But I think there are just different motivations. So, people want to get caught up in the moment. Why not? I mean, part of this hobby is about experience. It's not just about acquiring the cards. If we want to, if we want to wait, why is anyone buying Tom Brady now? Why don't we wait for another 5 or 10 years when he's retired and we've all moved on to, 3 other quarterbacks or 50 other quarterbacks? Why not wait? Because it's not as fun. We like to be part of that, the ups and downs. Well, not necessarily the downs, but we like to be on the bottom part of things going up sometimes. So it's just one of those things. It doesn't necessarily fire me up, I guess. And financially, it would make a ton of sense. But again, if it's something that I really want, or if I feel like, my family's going to remember this because we're, such hardcore Bengals fans, whatever, man. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. And I think the fun of it was the way I worded it was, if you're buying Burrow right now, you're doing it wrong. It's more tongue in cheek, right? To be brought as we're trying to have fun with the hobby. And there are going to be people out there that are seriously going to, oh, who are you to tell me how to spend my money? And it's like, oh, dear Lord. And then you look and it got 77 followers for an account that opened last November. And it's like, specifically, you don't know who I am and my sense of humor and my sarcasm. And obviously sarcasm gets lost completely in everything we do nowadays with internet and texting and, where it's all text based. It's really hard to get the inflection and everything in the intent. But yeah, again, there's no right or wrong way to spend your money if as long as you're being fiscally prudent. Don't spend beyond your means. Don't take your mortgage money. But hey, that's up to you. If that's your choice, it's your money. You're welcome to do what you will. But the idea being, again, I had a discussion a couple years back when Daniel Jones threw for whatever it was 5 touchdowns his first game, and people are going nuts. Mm-hmm. And I had made a comment about that being insane, right? Don't buy now. Yeah. And Uncle Rich, as much as I admire and respect him, he goes, now's the best time. And I'm like, Rich, he was the 6th overall pick just a couple months ago. We knew about this guy. At least when I made a similar comment about Mason Rudolph going nuts, Rudolph came out of nowhere. And it's like, honestly, if you want to speculate on a quarterback, there's only 96 of these guys. Take the bottom 32, roughly, take the bottom 32 and go see what those guys have and speculate. As long as they're under, say, 27 years old, don't go out and get the Josh McCowns of the world and the Brian Hoyers. But, if they're 24, 25, you never know when you're going to get a Taylor Heineke or years ago, Tyrod Taylor, when he kind of came out of nowhere with Buffalo and kind of became a fantasy darling for a while. And, if you're just speculating, it's the old magician trick. We've mentioned that before. Look where no one else is looking because the magic's not happening in front of you. If you're going to prospect and buy these PRCs, do it not with the top 5 guys, but do it with somewhere in the middle. Some of the guys that you can get for a few dollars. And if you want to eat a tuna sandwich instead of going to McDonald's tomorrow, hey, you save $10. Go buy 2 or 3 of these middling autos, not pitchers, of course. And stick them in a box. You never know when the next guy is going to pop through that nobody called. But
the Burrow of 2019, 5 touchdowns, 352 yards.
Yeah, and he got drafted in April. So we again, it's not that Tom Brady, it's not a Russell Wilson 3rd round pick, right? It's literally a top 6 pick. In a huge market. We knew Daniel Jones was going to be a highly sought after card at some point. Let's not act on Monday after he does something like that. Now's the time to buy. It's like literally it's not the time to buy for PC or otherwise. You're buying in an upward trajectory. Put it on your want list and go buy it in 6 months. And Matt Chapman, again, perfect example of I bought his prospect auto in 2018 after he had made it to the majors, and I spent more money on it than I would have years earlier, but he's a known commodity now, right, so to speak. Cards aren't commodities, but that idea being that we now know who he is enough as opposed to some random. If I said Austin Beck, Lazaro Armenteros, would anybody outside of A's prospectors know who I'm talking about?
Yeah,
all the Bowman buyers would know.
Yeah, one guy can't hit a curveball. One guy basically became Pedro Serrano, and the other guy can't hit at all. So, first round pick and a highly sought after international signing. So, we're on the 2-year anniversary roughly of COVID becoming a everyday word and affecting and impacting so many of our lives, whether personal or perhaps indirect. Our jobs, our living habits, the toilet paper, the hand sanitizer. I mean, so much of our lives were affected 2 years ago. It shut down not the world, but it shut down our hobby as a byproduct thereof, a one-off, and obviously altered the landscape of so much because we had the flippers that came in. What 10 years from now, what are we going to look back and say about that March, April, May of 2020?
I think people are going to look back at it and see it as an exciting time. I think the long-term hobbyist is probably, they could be a little frustrated because we've all seen the prices, escalate so much. But, I think that the hobby really did offer, the hobby, the flipper, whatever you want to call it. But cards as a whole have offered us all a way to kind of, one, come together and interact with each other. Two, take our minds off of things a little bit. So I don't think it's going to be looked at negatively. I think that the era has given us this new, I think you guys would call it Junk Wax 2.0 essentially, or some variation thereof. We definitely seen production up because the demand is there, and we have so many new bodies in the hobby spending on whatever. So I think 10 years down the road, we're going to see a lot of people talking about how much money they spent. But I think it also, we will be reminded of how, this hobby kind of helped us through such a tough time. So at least that's how I choose to think about it.
That's pretty fair. I mean, it's not that work-wise I've been affected all too much. Still here, still doing what I do. But at the same time, I do welcome a distraction from everything going on behind the four walls around me.
It's interesting insight, Ben, that you had on that, because I think most of us hobby related would be quick to run to the negative just because there were so many negative connotations, and this show was definitely one that covered each and every one of them as they came along our timeline. But if we take a step back, the reason shows like The Office are so popular is because of that comfort level. I know what to expect. It doesn't bother my anxiety. I feel like these are my friends. I feel like I could go work at Dunder Mifflin or go hang out with the cast of friends on the couch at the coffee shop and so on and so forth. Whatever your comfort show is, we all have them. Our favorite songs, we feel like this person is singing to us and telling our story. And I think a lot of people ran to the hobby to, it was comfortable. Maybe you dug out the boxes out of your garage and maybe you made some money. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you just rekindled your passion for, the nostalgia of yesteryear. And it gave us something to do to keep our mind occupied. And, without trading cards, once upon a time without Sam Cooke's music, I'd have been in a much different place. It's like, I don't want to say it saved my life, but to a degree, we all need something we can rely on, whether it's a good book or a movie or music, because I'd say family and friends, but that's kind of what happened was COVID took that away from us. Mm-hmm. Can't go out and, even to this day, if I go to the Bay Area next weekend, I see you, are we going to be able to shake hands? Are we allowed to do that anymore? It's a personal choice between the two of us, but it almost seems like it's taboo. Like, is it something we're allowed to do? Yes, we're adults. We can do whatever we give ourselves permission to do. But so much has changed and a lot in the hobby. So I'm glad you put a positive spin on it, because I would be the first to argue the opposite about the negativity, because we have. And I appreciate the other shoe, the other perspective. Before we move on to the rest of the show, tell us the story briefly about Randy Moss rookie with the graded slab for verification.
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version because I know we got to get moving here. Way back in '98, managed to pull. We got it here. Here we are. It's the SP Authentic Randy Moss rookie card. There we are. I pulled this from a pack. Well, the original one I pulled from a pack. Anyhow, the card had to be replaced, and it was a handwritten serial number on here. So I sold it in 2007. We were having, actually it wasn't 2007, it was closer to 2009. 2008, 2009. My ex and I learned we were having our daughter, so I ended up selling the card. And about a month and a half ago, I guess maybe it's been a month and a half, 2 months or so ago, I was reminded of the card. And someone pointed out that, hey, you should check eBay, check this one out. And because it was hand numbered. Sure enough, it was 1541, which I was like, oh, shit. I know a lot of these weren't actually hand numbered because they were supposed to be foil stamps. Well, they were foil stamps. But the Moss, the one I pulled from a pack, had a crease in it. So I sent it back to Upper Deck and had him replace it, and that's when they put the handwritten number on there. Anyhow, I suspected it might be mine, and what I did was I looked at the serial number, the slab serial number right over here, and I went and checked on the date, and sure enough, it was 2000. Shit, I forget off the top of my head now. I think I actually graded it in 2007 is when I had it graded. But I went back and looked at the other cards in my collection, and I had the other ones around it. I had a Montana rookie that was one ahead. I had a Kershaw that's one after. So I was able to use the Beckett serial number to help me confirm that this was in fact the card that I used to own. So that's the quick version of it.
We talk at the top of the show, the tagline, cards tell a story. I mean, you want to talk about a story that card told. And then we always talk about cards making it home. Yeah. That card literally made it home. I mean, it's not just me sending you a pile of 1987 Topps Carney Lancers and saying, better they sit in your box than my box, and it's home. I mean, that card literally made it back home.
Yeah, it as I've gotten older now, I mean, I'm going to be 42 in a couple months, and as I've been doing this long enough, and I've acquired enough stuff where I'm like, okay, if I didn't acquire anything new, I mean, it'd be hard to do that, but I would still enjoy what I have. So what I've done is start to think about things I used to own and trying to at least keep an eye out for things that I may have owned before. And it's easy when you have serial numbered cards. Either the card is serial numbered or the slab is serial numbered. So it's been one of those things that had kind of been kicking around for a little while, especially as I get older here and I'm thinking about, where some of these cards may end up later in life or afterlife.
So when are you getting a Mustang again?
No plans for that at the time, at this moment.
That's fair.
But, it is nice to have this thing home. I mean, it is the same exact slab. I mean, what are the odds of that? And it's because the card was hand numbered. I mean, ultimately, this is a less desirable card to anyone who wants one of the 2000 Randy Mosses that exist. Because everyone wants the factory stamp, right? They don't want the hand numbered one that was a replacement. So that made it less desirable to crack and send a PSA. Therefore, it stayed in the same Beckett case that I sent it in, 15-ish years ago. So I'm glad it is home. It makes me feel good. I look at it in my showcase. I'm like, yep, I have good memories of that one.
Love it. And that's why the guy got rid of it. He didn't want it because it was hand numbered. And he's like, I'm going to go get the stamped. And you're like, come on, baby. Just come back home.
Yeah, I don't want any of the other ones. I don't care if it was, much less. It would have made sense to me. I wanted that one. That was the only one I wanted. So
no, that's awesome. So let's hop into the show. We appreciate you being with us and the awesome conversation. And we can extrapolate a little bit on some of the Twitter conversations we have in like 4 paragraphs. Usually here we do the listener mail day, but I mean, you kind of just gave us one, which is awesome. I did pick this up, the 1987 Topps auto of Maguire, which as soon as I saw it on the checklist, I'm like, I'm not buying that. And then as soon as they started popping on eBay, all of them went into the watch list. So that's the Series 1 in the 1987 design. So I think we had one from Alex Visioni as well.
I'm pulling it up now.
He pulled a pretty slick card, and he's coming up on an upcoming episode. I don't have the date in front of me, but he'll be on the show soon to kind of share his hobby stories.
Do also have some to share in the upcoming weeks. I shouldn't have any deluge, so to speak, but need a hashtag about the cards mail day. I just pulled this Acuna Gold Auto number to 50 from a Chrome update hanger at Target, and I'm freaking out. As
He pulled awesome. He's pulled some stupid cards, and it's almost always gold out of 50.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got some great luck. I mean, if you wanted to go to like
There you go,
7-Eleven
Herman.
and buy a lottery ticket, I'm taking Alex with me and tell me which one to buy. Just real quick before we move on, 5x7s. Cards are not cards.
cards.
I hate that they're on the trading card database checklist. Put it that way. I hate that.
Gotcha. I love them. I love them, but I don't know that they're cards.
Okay, I got one for you then. Card.
Ooh.
I have a Dennis Eckersley. I just literally almost smashed it because it was standing out of a box, and I'm like, who the heck came up with this crap?
Cola Collection bookmarks.
Right.
I think 92?
Yeah.
93?
In 93, because I think Ruben Sierra was made as an A.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate
Are
those
those-
too.
Are those the same size as the game day cards? Remember game day?
I think they're a little thinner.
Okay.
Like,
They look like about the same.
for comparison.
Any of the odd size stuff always sticks out, especially when they're larger. If they're smaller, we can kind of make it work. But anything larger, it starts to. Even like the Stadium Club oversized box toppers, like I love them, but at the same time, like, how do I store this? You know?
It's, especially some of those where like they've tried to mimic the original Topps posters or whatnots, and they end up being just stupid large, size of a monitor almost.
Yeah.
All right, so let's hop into the week that was. Last week's releases, Topps Living Week 209 was a big week. It's card 499, Luis Gil, rookie card pitcher for the Yankees. And then card 500, Josh Gibson, catcher for the Grays. They ended up redoing the logo with the old school Negro League G versus just having a Topps logo. So glad that was a placeholder just to show us the image of the card and not the final design, because really, really happy that they had Jared fix that. And maybe that was always the case, that was how it was going to be released. But that original one with the Topps logo just took so much away from it, in my opinion, because it just looked like an advertisement on such a beautiful card. So do we have sold on those ones or not, Steph? I couldn't find any earlier.
They're not even in the archive yet.
Okay. We'll have to keep you updated on the Josh Gibson one, just because the Wander Franco ended up jumping from 43 to 68,000 after the final numbers were announced. Exactly 25,000, which makes you wonder if maybe the Tampa Bay Rays perhaps bought some to do a stadium giveaway. That was something that Matt Major, Cardboard Stats, had suggested. We saw Pat Neshek buy a ton of his own.
That'd be kind of cool.
Maybe Franco bought some of his own, but 25,000 exactly. Maybe Topps bought some from themselves with the intent to do some type of insert or buyback.
Archive signature series. Sure.
That's right. It's coming. 25,000 one of ones.
No, just to reprint it.
Okay. So, yeah, interesting. So, major releases last week. We had on 3/9, we had Panini Contenders Football, Topps Opening Day, a throwaway product, Panini Premier League Soccer, and then on Friday we had Panini Origins Basketball, Panini Playbook Football, and then Topps Heritage. So pretty big week, lots of different price points, lots of different products to enjoy depending on your collecting style. This week's a fairly light week. Topps Living 210 came out today. Card 501, Brandon Marsh, rookie card, outfielder for the Angels. And 502, Jose Barrios, pitcher for the Blue Jays, which is his second card. He did have a very early one with the Minnesota Twins, I believe in week 27 or something like that. It was fairly early on in the program. And then
It's early enough that I actually still have one.
Yeah.
I kind of gave up after like the fifth or sixth one.
Gotcha. So Topps Living Star Wars available through next Tuesday. It dropped yesterday. Commander Diacy, I might be pronouncing that wrong, from The Last Jedi, and card 292, Pastel Argente, Star Wars The Phantom Menace. So not too familiar with either of these characters, but I'm sure canon fans, Andrew's probably going to text me and tell me that I pronounced both names wrong.
I actually can't say that I recognize either of these either.
Topps Throwback Thursday released last week. This was kind of interesting. So it runs through tomorrow. This is set number 10, the second iteration of 72-73 basketball. Card 28, Rafael Devers, 29, Pete Alonso with the short print. Didn't realize how much that dude looks like David Wright, because I thought that was a David Wright card in the small thumbnail. And then card 30, Matt Manning. And the reason I say it was interesting is the last few weeks, if not all of them, then this year had a veteran, a retired player, as one of the three. And this week, I thought it was David Wright, and then I was like, "Oh, that's Pete Alonso." And
thankfully survived his car crash the other day.
Yeah, am I seeing things? I mean, does that not kind of look like David Wright a little bit?
It doesn't look like a Topps representative to me.
It's the helmet, I think, that really gets you.
Yeah, because it's around and it's maybe just the way his mouth is pursed, and
it kind of does look like. Yeah.
When it was a small, like I said, when it was like the small, tiny thumbnail, I was like, okay, David Wright. And then I opened it up. I'm like, that's not him. And so, yeah. And Matt Manning just had a Topps living card, recently. So it's kind of interesting to see him represented in this set so quickly right after. So probably going to see a lot more Matt Manning, I would imagine, in products throughout the year. They always like to have a handful of people that they just continuously cycle through. And the major releases, we only have one this week. It's going to be 2021 Panini Limited Football. Drop today, $500 a box. You're going to get 3 packs, 5 cards. You will get 1 RPA or Ring of Honor auto, 1 additional auto, 1 mem, 1 parallel, and 1 2000 limited tribute. There will be 1 2000 limited edition tribute per case. So, if you're a football collector, there you go. And then a couple of other things we saw: Bowman Baseball First Edition dropped today, $400 a box. And then Upper Deck Series 1 Hockey Blasters were slated to hit the retail markets today as well.
I did not see them, but that's not to say that they don't exist.
Yeah, they were slated to hit as of this morning. So whether they got pushed back or not,
maybe they're still en route. Who knows?
And
retail
check out,
is funny.
You never know. Sometimes it shows a week early. Sometimes, it's not announced. Thanks, Topps Fire. You can check out Ryan Cracknell's articles on Beckett.com/news for more details. Yeah, that'll come out about the time that the A's decide they're not going to trade their stars. What's brewing next week's releases? Just a couple. 2022 Panini Prism UFC is coming out they're all coming out on the 23rd, so next Wednesday. 2021 Panini Fortnite Series 3 and 2021 Upper Deck Artifacts Hockey, all slated for next Wednesday. Let's hop into the Infield Chatter Hobby Talk section. eBay Vault. And here we go. So if you haven't heard what the HE double hockey sticks is going to eBay doing, they're apparently launching next quarter a vault. They plan to open a 31,000 square foot security storage facility for your trading card investments. Their word, not mine. They plan to extend this into luxury goods as well eventually. Within a few years, eBay anticipates having $3 billion in assets in their vault. I don't know who's doing the valuation math, but that's the number that they threw out. Apparently, eBay is coming after ComC's market. What the hell are they doing? I mean, just stay in your lane. Remain the leading market shareholder for online marketplace sales across most, if not all, categories. I mean, stop. What are your guys' thoughts?
I don't understand the
no comment.
idea of. I don't understand the idea of buying it and then having it stored somewhere else. Like, that doesn't work for me. Like, I'd like to own and look at my stuff, So, I haven't looked at the particulars of this. Are they scanning things in, and can you view your collection, or are they just merely holding on to it for you?
Yeah.
I don't know if they made an announcement regarding what the actual planned programs are.
It's a lot of liability.
Details.
Why would you take that on? That's I don't know. That's a pass for me.
Easy. Steph, are you allowed to comment on this?
I mean, I'm sure I could, but no comment.
That's a good
one. Yeah, it's just who knows how they're going to launch this. It leads into another thing eBay did. You want to talk about a failed attempt to add value to the hobby that no one asked for? We've mentioned this a few weeks in a row now, the eBay authentication program. This one came via Coach Bruno cards. Bruno bought what appears to be a Series 1 Wander Franco Gold 2022. Of course, it has to go to the new eBay authentication program first, based on the sale price. So it's been a glaring success. There's been no reported issues at all with this program. It went off without a hitch. Everybody's happy about it. Let's pause for sarcasm and dramatic effect, of course. Bruno showed before and after photos of the Franco that he bought. Once again, eBay's new program has damaged a card during an attempt to authenticate it. Dude, it's a Series 1 Gold out of 2022. Are people already printing at-home copies and forging these? I mean, seriously? I mean, do we have to send this card off for authentication? Shouldn't there be some kind of a... I don't know.
I think one of the big issues, in one way, I applaud eBay for wanting to, I guess, try to make this process a little easier, especially with the higher valued items. But I mean, we do have people touching these cards, right? And I know CSG is involved in this. I don't know who at CSG is involved in it. I assume it's not the graders, or I assume it's just the company by name. But I looked at this photo before, and the before eBay authentication, it looks like it's a little white to me, and because it's a little grainy, it looks like it's a little bit white to me. So I'm not saying the dude's wrong. It just feels that way to me. And again, even at the after one, it's got a little bit of a glare. So this is partially why I think this service exists, because if this card skipped authentication, right, and it went straight from seller to buyer, the buyer would be very upset, right? But look at these. This is a good example of how it could be the glare on the plastic, or it may be masking it or not. It's angles. We don't have a uniform way that we take these pictures. And I know that eBay has decided to contract with CSG for this service, but I mean, I don't know. It could be a one-off, and I'm sad that it happened. I mean, it's too bad that it happened, and this guy has this card on the way that's going to have the damage, or I guess he already got it, but it's just, I don't know. What do you do? Because we heard so many scams through eBay. I mean, this goes back to the managed payments, and then, at least they're doing something. It's not perfect. I wish they'd take more care if this card is actually damaged more than it was initially. But it's kind of one of those things, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't,
One of my biggest issues with something like this is under the assumption that it got damaged while in eBay's possession, or under their supervision. The problem is this card is now damaged. So now there's one less copy available in the market forever in as good of condition as possible, right? Once it gets damaged, that's it. Now this particular one has a dinged corner. Years ago, I bought an oversized Cespedes. So when they did 71, I think they had like the in-action ones. Anyway, there was only like 60 copies of each of these made. And I got one, paid a lot of money for it, and when I opened it, I ripped right through the card. And I opened it like a savage, and that's on me. And Heather's like, "Didn't I tell you not to open cards like that?" And so I ended up buying another one. So I do have 2 copies of it. But as far as, and I outside of anybody listening to this, I'm the one that knows that there's one less copy in 100% whole condition, right? Not pristine condition, not PSA 10, so to speak. But one has a rip in it, because I know that because I did it. It's like, this one is dinged, and it's unfortunate, especially if it was done under eBay supervision, which perhaps the pictures, I mean, we've all seen rainbow foil cards, pictures taken thereof, and then they look like there's some kind of shiny multicolored rainbow just because of how the seller's camera captured the image.
This is why it's easier to collect vintage.
Yeah, but it is and it isn't, though, because vintage, I mean, that stuff is often damaged. And to what level? I do think that there's a value to this service that eBay's offering. So I realize that, this Wander Franco is damaged and this experience for this buyer isn't solid. I don't think the program as a whole is a failure. I think there's an absolute necessity for it.
So you're right. It's like when people start pulling downtown cards and you start seeing them all over Twitter and Facebook, it doesn't mean everybody's going to be able to pull one out of a pack. It just means everybody that has taken to social media. At least it feels that way. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing an inordinate amount of these suckers populating. So you're thinking, oh, if I go buy a blaster, I'm going to get one too. And that's just not the case. We're always going to, again, right? You're going to have people on Yelp give you negative reviews before positive reviews. We're always quick to bitch before we are to praise. This authentication program could have 1,000 positive experiences and people say nothing. But God forbid we ding one. Now you have a podcast like ours. You have people like me, Steph, you, whoever gets a hold of this and perhaps makes commentary on their own timeline. And then it gets picked up by more people. And now it does look like it's, objectively a failure because we're only seeing the one side, the negative. And it's still in its infancy. We don't know what this program is going to be. Herman brings up a good point. How do we know that CSG didn't receive the card that way from the seller? The guy buying the card did say it looks like penny sleeve damage. Therefore, was it taken out of a penny sleeve, scanned, bought, seller sticks it back in the penny sleeve after the scan? And so therefore, seller, if I'm speaking in Bruno's first person, I bought it with it being undamaged. And then between the time it was scanned to the time it was received by me, it got damaged. And it could have been done by the seller. But we have seen the way that eBay packages these. We've seen multiple times where cards have slipped out of the little straps on the corners. I don't know why there's not 4 straps instead of just 2. I don't know if it's a presentation thing. It just seems like
it was cheaper.
It was. Maybe that's the first thing they need to modify is, and again, it goes back to that whole ready, aim, or ready, fire, aim theory, right? Let's get it ready. Let's fire it out there, and then let's figure out what the problems are, and then we'll fix them and re-aim. Maybe that's where this goes. What are your thoughts on if I have a card and it's $500 and you buy it from me? What are your thoughts on you being able, as the buyer, to opt out of this and have me send it directly to you? But the caveat that it now limits your ability to return it if it gets damaged in transit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I mean, this program, I think, exists solely for the idea of weeding out the scams, for fake cards, for people not actually sending anything, for people sending a gold rainbow instead of a gold foil Wander. I don't think opting out is going to be okay. I think it creates too much. I mean, because what if this scenario existed where this card was damaged into a penny sleeve prior to sending to eBay, but then the seller sends it to the buyer, and the buyer receives it just like that. We eliminate eBay from the entire discussion, but now the buyer has opted out of the program and now can't return it. What happens? Or what happens if the guy sends a base card instead of the gold? And he's opted out, so now he can't even send it back.
Well, and again, isn't this about authentication really and not about the condition? So that's really where I think a lot of people, and we talked about this a week or two ago, where it seemed like CSG is grading the card because a guy had gotten a partial refund request from eBay saying you owe X amount of dollars because the condition isn't as you listed. And again, maybe I'm naive or ignorant to how the program rolled out, but I do think most of us on the surface were under the impression it was just, hey, I didn't make this card on my printer.
Right.
And I'm sitting here with my hand up against my printer, like, all right, I'm sticking it in a penny sleeve. No, it was actually pack pulled.
Right.
And so it's real. And really it pertains to some of the more vintage and older cards that are highly replicated such as the 52 Tops Mantle, the 86 Fleer Jordan, the 2011 Update Trout. These are high dollar cards that are also highly counterfeited. I don't think that anybody yet is counterfeiting a 2022 gold serial numbered Wander Franco. I could be mistaken, but I doubt there's very many of those out there. So this program almost defeats the purpose on this card, isolated just to this purchase. But if they came up with a way where we could perhaps opt out of certain portions and it restricts our ability on the back end. And hey, it doesn't mean you ever have to take advantage of it. It just means it's an option as the buyer. Just give me my card.
Yeah.
And just because Ben Aguirre or Ben Wilson or Stephen Loeffler decide not to doesn't mean Dave Smith won't. Dave's okay with it. And again, it's Dave's decision.
Right.
But
another key one you missed was the 63 rows.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of different things that are along. Those were just three that off the top of my head I know get a lot of crap just because those are ones that are always in Facebook groups. Hey, is this Jordan real? Is this Trout real? Oh no, it's missing this particular person in the background of the Jordan, or the seal over the Tops or Angels logo or something on 2011. And there have been books written on the mantle and how to identify a real versus. And again, those are only as good as the day they're printed, right? I mean, technology, evolves over time. And as a result, scammers are going to get much, much smarter. And if they buy the right equipment, they can scam until they're, the day they get caught.
I think I saw somewhere recently someone had fake downtown cards.
See, that doesn't surprise me.
No, but that's a relatively new process, and it's not like it's a flat image. It's it's holofoil. It's got all kinds of stuff on it. So,
like,
I don't know.
By fake downtown, aren't you talking about the Topps home field advantage cards?
Oh no, I'm talking about. I understand your joke. But, no, I'm talking about legitimately false downtowns. But
see, but I don't know what it would cost to produce one of those, because I am not a scammer, but assume that sure. your landed cost to produce a fake downtown was somewhere in the $20 to $30 range with, on average, once you've bought the printer and the supplies and, if you're a scammer, what's $50 if you can make 500?
I get it, but well, this is why I think the service makes sense. But I don't think we're arguing that it doesn't. I think we're arguing that it's not perfect. So.
No, and again, ready, fire, aim. Perhaps they'll tweak things along the way, and
sure.
And again, I think we've said this before. If anybody out there has had good experiences with this so far, let us know, because we'd like to show that not everything has been bad. We've only talked about the bad because so far that's all that we've seen.
Sure.
And those are juicy. Nobody cares about the tabloid. I'm watching an episode of Big Time Rush the other day with my kids, and there's a specific episode where Big Time Rush keeps getting caught doing bad things. Like, one of the characters is pulling a purse away from a woman's arms, but he had just picked it up off the ground and handed it back to her. Nice gesture. She lost her balance, and he's like pulling the purse to help her up, but they take a picture of it and they're like, oh, he's a purse thief. And the whole episode is, slapstick, because, they're the modern day monkeys. That show came out 10 years ago. And so it's all slapstick crap, but the entire show is the perception of what they're doing negatively because of when it was captured versus what actually is happening. One of the characters slaps a old lady across the head, but he was swooshing a bee away, but from the angle it was taken, it looks like he hit her. And then an angle from a security camera later in the episode shows that he hit a bee and his hand never came close to her head. And that's the thing. Right now, we're only seeing the negative. That's
so
it.
Those are today's monkeys. What is today's banana splits?
I don't know, Steph. What are today's banana splits?
I'm asking. or if anybody even knows what I'm asking about.
I'm not old enough for that.
No. So some interesting news came. This is pretty cool. Upper Deck has some exciting and pretty cool news. This came out. Upper Deck Sports. The NHL's first African American player was Valmore James. Upper Deck is creating 2 new heroic inspiration cards of Mr. James. You read about it on their blog. He was a former member of the Buffalo Sabres and Toronto Maple Leafs. Per the blog, this is a direct quote, trading card companies of his era seldom featured large checklists to catch a player like James in their sets. In other words, he wasn't as good of a player, maybe, down the roster a little bit. And if they have smaller checklists, they're only going to capture the higher, top 5-6 players per team. And so he wasn't going to get a card made. I think we looked up his stats before the show, and he had a few years in the league, which is.
I think he played in parts of 2 seasons. I think the most he played was like 7, 8, 10 games, something to that effect. And there was like a 4 or 5 year gap between the 2 different seasons. Former North Star.
I mean, how many bullpen guys, how many closers even, the Kenley Jansens and Craig Kimbrells of the world have limited cards, right? They don't get as many because of the position that they play. Offensive linemen, Hall of Fame offensive linemen don't get that many. And
true story, the snappers for field goals don't have a Madden slot. Place kickers. Or a lot.
Yeah. So I think we said he played in the late 70s and the first part of the 80s, so he just wasn't featured. So Upper Deck is going to fix that. Much like the Negro League players with tops now, it's great to see some of these players get some recognition, even if it's much later than it should have been. You hate to say better late than never, but at least now we can also start to learn more about the history. I mean, if you had asked the casual hockey, who was the Jackie Robinson of hockey, who was the first African American hockey player, I don't know how many, would be able to answer that. So, Steph, what's the impact of these particular trading cards for the hockey collecting community?
Well, I know hockey has tried to make a huge stand in regards to similar type programs with certain select players making a huge push to bring the sport to the inner city communities and try to grow the sport to other minority groups, because it's not a easy sport to get into. I mean, in basketball or even baseball, all you need is the ball and some minor equipment, whereas in hockey you need yearly skates. If your feet don't stop growing, you need pads, you need a stick that may or may not snap in a game. I mean, I played street hockey and I needed new blades every year. We use tinfoil balls instead of an actual puck, but I hope that for the kids that saw Ginla growing up and are now in the NHL, that expands this further. Seeing Matt Dumba or Jordan Greenway just from my wild, that maybe we get more people that want to play the sport. Or look into it and see, well, hey, who else can I collect? And this is an opportunity.
So I want to go out and buy these cards. Do we know how they're packed out yet for collectors that are interested in adding these to their collection?
I do not. Let me see here.
I didn't catch the whole blog, so
I'm not sure if it's e-pack or if they're going to do a distribution to card shops. So NHL Heritage Classic Digital Card Pack. So yeah, so it was an e-pack release. Now, but it also may be a physical release, because I know they rolled out what used to be the NWHL, the National Women's Hockey League, had some game dated moments that, as of right now, are digital only, but they will be physical at some point once the cards are produced, and I can request those cards. Maybe they're doing it with these. I'll have to look into it further.
So I've mentioned this before. It's kind of funny how certain topics come up at certain times. Like the show almost writes itself for the person we have on the show. Printing issue will come up when we have Nick Vosbrink slated to come on. It's funny that sometimes, we had something economic related come up when Jeff Soxie was joining us. And moments ago, a little bit ago, Freddie Freeman officially became an LA Dodger, leaving the Atlanta Braves. We knew he was leaving. It was just a matter of where he was going, with Dodgers being the heavy favorite, which leads us into our next topic, and that's why I bring it up. This is always an interesting collector-based topic, and we mentioned earlier about Ben's son Tony and what he's going to do with his Matt Chapman collection over the next few years for the remainder of his collecting days and Chappie's career. We've seen a few trades so far, and now this major signing. NFL free agency is upon us, and players are moving all over the place, including big ones such as Russell Wilson. Maybe Deshaun Watson moves in certain, soon. As collectors,
quarterback.
No, you guys get him forever and ever.
Also, I do have an update. It looks like they had some 5x7 promo copies on hand with him. They're signing as well. Let's scroll down here. Moving forward, printing standard size versions of the cards will be available for free while supplies last through certified diamond dealers in Toronto and Buffalo, the two teams that he played for. So check out if you're in the Toronto or Buffalo area and you want one of these, or someone there, you can send them a message and see if you can't get one of these in hand.
Yeah,
or check other places, I'm sure.
Good looking cards, and the Buffalo Sabres one is in black and white, which kind of adds to it's kind of neat. The other one colorized. So, as collectors, when you see a guy like Matt Olson get traded, we talked about him going to the Braves, which led to the dominoes leading Freeman out the door, now a Dodger. Other major moves we've seen before the deadline, before the lockout, with Marcus Semien and Corey Seager going to the Rangers, Max Scherzer heading to Queens. Queens? Yeah, right? Isn't that where the Mets play? How does player movement really affect our collecting habits? I mean, again, I know we touched on this a little bit at the top of the show. We had this topic written here. How do you think the overall market is affected from team and player collectors? Specifically, we talked about Herman not knowing what he wants to do with, his Freeman collection yet. It's an interesting question because so many of us are faced with this, especially some of us in different markets. We get faced with this a lot more often. The Braves not re-signing Freddie Freeman was an absolute shock, I think, for a lot of people, that they didn't get that deal done back in December or last year. I mean, is there anything that, I mean, there's it's not even like you can ask somebody their opinion. Like, what do you do? Because again, it really comes up to you and what you want to do specifically for your PC.
Well, and especially like your attachment to the player, like someone like Kiner Falefa, he was a Twin for a day. I mean, does it count? I hope he found his car, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that. It apparently got lost in the shuffle, and he has no idea where his car is. But a guy like that, or a guy that actually played in a few games for us, isn't going to hold the same level of ire when they get traded as somebody like Morneau, or when Mitkevich had that 4-team trade, or something like that. A franchise icon going to another team. Killer Bruin 76, I imagine.
What's funny to me is, the minute we have these signings, our Twitter timelines will be flooded with people trying to dump stuff.
Yep.
As if there's suddenly a bunch of Dodger fans who want the Freddie Freeman stuff.
I already saw that.
They don't want it. Like, they want the Dodger stuff. You know what I mean? Like, the Dodger fans are going to be happy. They might want his rookie card, but they're not going to want his 2016, I don't know, Bowman Chrome Refractor, even if it's a number. They're not going to want that.
Maybe a rookie or two, but that's about it, I would imagine.
That's the thing. I mean, you see the timeline though. It's like, hey, who wants to buy this sweet lot of, Freddie Freeman base cards from 17 to 19? It's like, no, nobody wanted them before, or they already had them, so they're not going to want them now either. When my favorite team signs someone new, I might want the rookie card, or maybe an autograph just to have it. But even when they have a card of themselves in that new uniform, then I'm interested. Then I'm really interested.
That's when you get the auto, because they'll have one.
Yeah, it was David Ortiz, right? So after the 04 World Series, I wanted a David Ortiz auto. I didn't want a Twins auto, even though now we know the Twins autos are like the first 2 years. I wanted a Red Sox auto. I wanted a nice one too. I didn't want the Twins auto. I didn't want that. So it is funny to me to see how many folks are like, they've got their box of stuff just queued up, ready for someone to sign somewhere else. It's like, hey, look, here's a stack of Max Scherzer's from his 4 other previous teams.
2009 top 30.
Yeah, there was a knucklehead that is a hobby idiot for a different reason because he committed mail fraud with PWEs. But he was a big Piscotty collector, right? Big Piscotty collector. And then he gets traded to the A's and he DMs me because at the time we didn't know that he was a scum, but he was like, do you want all my Piscotty stuff? And I'm like, why? It's Cardinals. I only collect A's. Dude literally got pissed at me and started calling me names that I didn't want to buy his Piscotty stuff. And we're going to go back to 2 Oakland A's here for a moment, or former A's. There's a difference between Matt Olson in Atlanta because he signed an 8-year extension versus Matt Chapman, who has 2 years of team control left with the Blue Jays. If I, as a Blue Jays fan, I don't necessarily want to go back and get that 2017 Bowman or the 2014 Bowman Chrome auto of Chappie because I'm not 100% certain yet that he's going to be with me. Now, if they announce a 4 or 5, 6 year extension, he's going to be in Toronto for half a decade. Maybe that changes the narrative. If I'm Herman and now I know Olson's replacing Freeman, but he's going to be there from age 28 to 35. At least that's where the contract. Now, all of a sudden, my attachment to Olson as a new player becomes a little bit different because the team has committed to him. I feel comfortable committing to him. Maybe I do want his rookie with the A's, and Herman, I've got some if you want some. But it's one of those things where to your point, Ben, I don't know that a whole bunch of people are going to be jumping for mini cards just because he's there.
Well, I can totally imagine that Shep bought a bunch of AJ Pierzynski cards, right?
So this segues into our next topic, which is really, we kind of already mentioned it a little bit. This stuff bothers me probably way more than it should. I don't know if it bothers you guys as much as it bothers me. But Christian Pache is one of the prize prospects going from Atlanta to Oakland in the Olsen trade. This guy on Reddit is looking to offload all of his Pache graded cards for, quote, current Braves in return. I had this very conversation on Twitter a long, long time ago, coincidentally enough, with a Braves fan who was looking to offload a recently traded player for current players on the Braves. People out there really turn their PC over every time a player gets traded or leaves via free agency. I don't get that because this is ridiculous. As an A's fan, I'd be turning my PC over every 6 months. I mean, I get your son not wanting to collect Chapman anymore. I get me pulling back on wanting to buy anything outside of the base team set stuff of Olsen and Chapman that are going to continue for a portion of 2022. I get Herman not wanting to collect Freeman anymore as a Dodger. I get that. But that doesn't mean get rid of all the stuff you already have.
And as a quote, damn, man, ink on the trade forms isn't even dry yet.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, do what you want with your cards. If he doesn't want them anymore and they're prospect cards, it's not like Christian was a 10-year vet with the Braves or anything. You can't compare him to Freeman, in other words. But I don't get that mentality of turning over your whole PC or a portion of your PC once the guy gets traded. Just, you collected them with the intent to keep him. I mean, I don't think that guy's posting on Reddit if that Olsen trade doesn't happen.
Sure.
He's not looking to offload him just to offload him.
I guess, the guy looking to move, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. Also, he was asking for current Braves. It's not like he's asking for Trout, or a large amount of money. He's legitimately looking to trade. So we all collect so differently, and some of us also have restraints too. Space is a big one. It's like, what am I going to do with, I think he had 30 something patches shown there. And what are you going to do with that stuff? At least someone might want those, because he's still so early in his career that all of that stuff could still be relevant. Because I think a lot of that stuff has rookie logos on it, and some of that stuff is prospect stuff. So if he turns out to be a legitimate star, they could still have some relevant. They could still be relevant to collectors. So I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I stopped investing in the idea that we all collect things the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it irks me just because it's like, I guess probably because of how I choose to collect, and not to say the way I choose to collect is the right way. It's the right way for Ben Wilson.
It's not,
and it's the right way for me only. But it's one of those things like you collect these cards because they're currently part of your team, and then as soon as they get traded, I've got to offload this. It's like, again, are you? Let's assume that you trade these for player XYZ. That player moves in 2 years. Are you now going to move that group of cards too? Are you always going to just shuffle? To me, that's not collecting. That's just, that's like saying, me and my wife are together forever. I saw a license plate one time saying, Dave and Sally for a while. And I laughed at that so hard. And Heather's like, why is that funny? I'm like, it's just, you always see like Moochie, oh, we're together forever. And I love they're together for a while. They're speculating on one each other. They don't know. Their relationship is built on arbitrage. I'm with you until something better comes along. Rolf said that in the Muppet movie, saying it with Kermit at the Steve Martin scene. It's like, I just think it's
an interesting way to collect.
Interesting.
Sure.
And again, I've had this conversation with two people, that plus the other conversation. It's like, why do Braves fans hate their former players so much?
I particularly encounter this with the Nashville Predators. Every single time Ryan Suter was on the ice in Nashville, he got booed. Why? Like, okay, the first year, okay, sure, maybe. Trust me, my Twins threw batteries at Chuck Knobloch when he came back to the Metrodome.
And he couldn't throw them back because they wouldn't have hit anything.
Well, that too. But 6, 7, 8 years after he's left Nashville, guys, come on.
Well, I get certain distaste. There's absolutely zero reason for Oakland A's fans to dislike Matt Olson or Matt Chapman. Chris Bassett, they didn't ask for this. This is on ownership, different conversation altogether. But I get somebody like Philadelphia, which hate everybody. They hate their current players. Let alone, I get them not liking Ben Simmons. That whole situation. And we can, who knows how serious the mental health stuff was. There's a lot of stuff that's probably not reported that we may or may not be privileged to down the road. Perhaps some of it's not our business. But as far as Ben Simmons go, I get how how Philadelphia fan might not dislike him and boo him as he comes back.
It's Philadelphia, so
it is. But I get that there's a situation where Ben Simmons and management had a serious issue.
Sure.
And they're going to hold him accountable because he's the player. Get on the get on the court. There's a difference there between that and somebody that just gets traded and doesn't play for your team anymore. That happens. Player movement happens.
Or even health-wise. What happens? It's never going to happen. But if Tatis keeps riding his motorcycle, keeps injuring his wrist, or in hockey where Jack Eichel had a serious disagreement about his own medical his medical procedures that he was slated to do. He wanted to do one way that was more effective and more proven, and the team wanted him to go with another reason. Now, for a wrist or a torn muscle, okay, you get that, but it was his spine that they wanted to have surgery on, and he eventually got a trade and got the surgery that he wanted. It's the only good thing Vegas has done. But I can see fans of Buffalo being sour patches about it.
But for how long? How long do you hold? Yeah, and trading cards away constantly as a result of player movement, especially when we as fans have no control over this stuff. Whole different scenario. If you want to start bringing in the names of Michael Vick and Deshaun Watson and Addison Russell and Ray Rice and players that have made horrific personal decisions that have affected other people, whether they were guilty or not. Sometimes it was just allegations. Sometimes it was actually proven with video footage. Yeah. If you want to get rid of that stuff, because we've had that conversation before, what do you do with when Addison Russell does what he does? Do you get rid of your whole Addison Russell PC or all of it besides the base stuff, because you have to kind of keep that for your base set or your complete set? But
I've
obviously
shredded cards before
out of a complete set.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have a complete set because a player did something wrong?
And a couple sets, yeah.
Where do you put that moral line, though? Because there's a lot of players in the 60s and 70s that did drugs. I mean, where do we put that morality of what's acceptable?
I think affecting your own self versus affecting others is a good start. Or other beings.
What was the dude, Leonard Little? Isn't that his name? The Rams defensive end that was 2 vehicular manslaughters or something like that, still playing on Sundays back in the day. And it's like, how many times does he have to hit somebody with a car and that causes their death before the NFL's like, you know what, we're better off without you? But yeah, the morality line is, again, a much, much deeper conversation, and perhaps maybe something we could do on a weekend and have, Ben back on with maybe 2 or 3 other people and do a roundtable discussion of where we draw those lines. What's acceptable outside of base, and do we have a 791 card set from the junk wax era because so-and-so did something inappropriate or horrific?
I mean, there's a 50s top set where they pulled a card of the guy because of things that he allegedly did in the off season. Right?
Is that the Cub guy that had a really
Boucher, indeed,
really bad past? Yeah. And we're not going to mention what he did, but you can Google his name if you want to find out.
Bouchee.
So, lawsuit update. Couple lawsuits here via Paul Lesko. Per Paul, this is a case that'll test how much protection card design gets under copyright law. Panini was sued for alleged copyright infringement due to its Stat Smashers card. Panini responded with about 100 plus denials, and that number is not an exaggeration. Panini claims that the plaintiff failed to, quote, obtain copyright registrations for the vast majority of their trading cards, which it alleges are its copyrighted works. Paul's thoughts were, I think this defense means only some cards are protected, the rest we can copy. Panini also says any alleged use by defendant of plaintiff's alleged copyrighted works where it was merely a de minimis, I think I pronounced right, use and does not constitute copyright infringement. Or in Paul's words, in other words, we just ripped it off a little bit so that it can't really be called infringement. Now, if you look at a side-by-side comparison, which Paul's thread does offer, it's damn near a carbon copy. Or a near complete ripoff, not just a tiny bit. It's literally like the old Highlights magazine where, 2 pictures side by side, find the 10 differences. And they're minimal, but for the most part, the pictures are the same. These cards are almost identical. So realistic, it could be a tracing. There's a lot more to this. So if you want to read through all of Paul's thoughts and commentary, which I do highly recommend, if this is of interest to you. Thoughts on Panini basically trying to use legalese to get out of having stolen yet another piece of work. I mean, they basically are like, yeah, we stole it, but they didn't have the copyright law. So boom, it's on them, not us. We can steal it. I mean, if you Ben, if you go into a liquor store and rob them, go outside and I rob you. I mean, my defense can't be, well, he stole the money first, and problems on them, right? They didn't copyright it, so they're allowing me to steal it.
That's that is the problem, though. I mean, again, I'm not a media lawyer. I'm not a lawyer at all. But that's the whole thing. If you don't have your work copyrighted, if someone steals your work, then what basis do you really have? I mean, I think to the common collector, it's pretty damn clear that it's pretty much the same, or at least heavily influenced. Put it that way. Even the name, you know what I mean? It's we're not even changing colors. We're almost right on. So, but again, I bet Stat Smashers haven't been around since '93. I think was when Wildcard. 93, yeah, I think '93 was last year. Wildcard put those out in its original form, anyway. So that's been 28 years. If the work's not copyrighted, I mean, what are you going to do about it?
Just makes Panini look bad because we saw what happened with the downtown Justin Herbert. And your defense literally isn't, whoops, our mistake. It's, yeah, we stole it, but they didn't do their due diligence, so they allowed us to steal it. I mean, it's the weight of the argument, not the action of itself. It's just like, they're literally admitting, whoops, it's on them, not us.
Well, I mean, what is the court going to say, though? I mean, it's a legal finding, right? That's what they're asking for. It's not it's not looking for an opinion, just a random opinion. Like, if there's no legal basis for the argument, then Panini's going to win.
No, they probably will. Yeah, I mean,
what are you going to do?
We stole it, and if you don't like it, I mean, it's one of those things. If I steal candy from my kid tomorrow and he's like, Dad, I'm bigger than you. What are you going to do? I'm the boss. Who are you going to go to? Your congressman? You're appealing to me. I am the higher power in this case. It's like they're literally, we stole it. You can't stop it. So it's just, go to Paul's timeline if you're listening, and if you haven't seen this already, and just kind of read through Paul's thoughts, because he's very sarcastic and humorous in his takes, and he'll throw around some adult language and stuff like that, which makes it even funnier coming from a lawyer. As he hates the lawsuit that we're about to talk about here in a second. He hates this kind of stuff because this one's getting settled and it's not going to have any juice for him to drink. He's going to like the stuff that's fun. This one was the one we mentioned a while back, which is Leaf versus Giannis. There's a quick update, much to the dismay of Paul. This one won't have any juicy litigation. It appears that Leaf and Giannis are in talks for an out-of-court settlement. Let's hope that more of the hobby lawsuits go this route. I mean, it's a hobby.
Smasher was a 92-93 set.
Good call. That's some knowledge from the icon. So yeah, again, Giannis and Leaf had a deal back in the day to use his, I believe it was in regards to the Greek Freak coined name, and the agreement was not renewed, and now here it is years later. Leaf used it without the permission, and that's when Giannis came in. And I think he did it on Thanksgiving, if I recall correctly. It was a holiday, and it's just like, you know what I got to do today? Watch some football, eat some turkey, and I'm pissed. Let's sue Leaf. Get my lawyer on the phone.
Well, okay, so I'm curious though. If you're an athlete and it's an off day, what else? What else are you doing? I mean, ideally, spending time with family and cooking and enjoying games and whatnot. But it's a good downtime moment. Maybe that's when he noticed all of the replies in his Instagram, Twitter. I don't know what all socials he has, but maybe that's when he noticed all of the notifications saying, "Hey, have you seen this?"
No, you scroll Facebook on the potty like the rest of us, or you hop on Twitter on a burner account like other NBA players do.
Under the age of 30 uses Facebook anymore.
We get a lot of good content from that website. There's a lot.
And they're all over 30.
A lot of shit that goes on over there on the Facebook that we like to bring over to the Twitter and laugh about.
Facebook.
That's actually what it was called in the old days. It was originally called the Facebook.
No,
and then they just moved it to Facebook. Yeah, Justin Timberlake said that in a movie.
because that's
It's actually-
accurate.
It's actually a pretty good movie, written by the Aaron Sorkin. So another surprise in Series 1 hockey from Upper Deck. This one actually came from Lori Bertman. She pulled a 2005 draft pick of Sidney Crosby out of Series 1. It was an insert, one out of every 1,152 packs. Steph, was this on the checklist or was this a surprise?
So it was. I do not believe it was on the checklist, and I do believe it was a true surprise. A Upper Deck clear picks. It's kind of an acetate. Has his draft year, Sidney Crosby. I think it's him from that year holding up the number 1. It's got a huge Penguins hat on, jersey, etc. The Penguins jersey over a suit, maybe. Weird choice, maybe from the draft itself, but a nice looking card. And as they said, it won in 1,152 packs.
Yeah, Upper Deck commented on it too, saying nice pull or something like that.
What a find.
Yeah. So this apparently is a non-checklist goodie surprise, like the Black Young Guns.
That's my understanding. It.
Interesting.
Or like I know Ginter and sometimes Gypsy Queen likes to pull this. Hey, it wasn't on the checklist, but congrats! It's a surprise.
Usually, since you mentioned Gypsy Queen, usually they have at least one unannounced parallel.
Right.
That you'll be like, hey, that wasn't on the parallel for super collectors and rainbow chasers. Like, all right, there's another one I have to go get. But the biggest surprise was that Sidney Crosby was drafted in 2005. Like, I don't know if it just seems like that was a couple years ago, or Sidney Crosby's like 28 right now, but
so
that's ridiculous.
Because you talk about Oakland enough, fun tie-in here. Before the draft, players, especially of Sydney's caliber, usually get invited to play for their country in the under 18 or the under 16 whatnot tournaments. And the year that him and Ovechkin and a couple other major names participated in that tournament, it was in my hometown and nearby Grand Forks. Unfortunately, I wasn't up there in 05, but I do have a few pucks, a few tournament photos from my uncle, because that arena in my hometown is like 2 blocks from his house. But yeah, imagine that, going to a under 18 tournament and seeing 2 all-timers.
No, that's awesome. Awesome memory too, to have, and personal connection for a variety of reasons. But the reason I talk about Oakland a lot is mostly because the A's do a lot of stupid shit. Let's be honest. They just do. I mean, I was giving my buddy Sandlot 408 Brian on Twitter some crap the other day because he's a Broncos fan. Huge A's guy, huge Laureano fan. And basically, the Raiders were not in the Bay Area when he was growing up, so he had to find a team to like, and he latched on to the Broncos. And his whole thing is, I just want one of my teams to be run by good management, taking a swipe at the A's. And it's not like he's wrong, season ticket holder. And if you've ever watched an A's game, he's the guy out in right field that has the pin vest that weighs like 14 pounds. Huge A's fan and collector. Great guy. But yeah, he's a Broncos fan. I'll give him a hard time about, not being a real Bay Area guy. Not that I'm not a San Antonio Spurs fan or anything. But, he's not wrong. The A's are just a bad franchise as they're currently run by current ownership. And unfortunately, we have some topics this week that were apropos for using them as an example because they've traded away multiple All-Stars a short period of time, which we saw coming. And economically speaking, I can understand it if I separate myself from the fandom. But, so another thing Upper Deck is doing, I know we talked about them a lot. They've got a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. So Upper Deck E-Packs are introducing AEW packs. This also came at Upper Deck Sports. The original tweet contains a link to the Upper Deck website that outlines how E-Packs work. if you're not familiar with the program. Steph, you collect EPAC hockey, right?
I do.
So I'm an AEW collector now. It's brand new to Upper Deck. It's a new wrestling line for wrestling collectors. How excited for this, if I'm an AEW collector, should I be? I don't know how the program works. It's brand new to me. I get this. Upper Deck's releasing a different way to collect AEW cards. Am I excited? Am I reserved? Where's my enthusiasm?
I'll give you a quick overview for the program here. You can share the right screen. So their website, you can buy a pack. You pick your AEW. It looks like $12.99 a pack, $199 a box, $31.50 a case. And then you can. So, for example, I'll take the Blizzard pack since here's my free day. It's an open review pack. Some of this stuff you can use to trade on the website to try to combine them to get a nicer parallel. Some of the stuff is instant, and you can have shipped to you through my work. After viewing all of the cards, go on to the next one, for example. Hopefully, I haven't seen the odds or whatnot. So you get something nice. And when you do, the card, when it pops up, will have a nice little glowy red flashlight effect to it, alerting you that, hey, you got an autograph or a numbered parallel or something to that effect. But I think there's one physical release and now there's one digital release. So for people that maybe don't have a card shop available or ones that have shops, but they're all sold out, maybe this is a different option for you.
Are they the same cards?
I believe so. Usually a physical release, if they do send it to EPAC, will lag behind 2 or 3 weeks.
So I get a free pack every so often?
Yeah, there's a daily free pack.
Okay.
It doesn't have anything super special. Usually it's only 3 cards. Diablo's a little different. Daily free pack.
Then I want to buy a pack. What is a pack going to cost me?
I've got some for $2.99. That AEW set was $12.99, so kind of runs the gamut.
Gotcha. And then the $2.99, are those just digital or are those also physical?
I've gotten physical out of the $2.99s. I've opened up Upper Deck Series 2 and Extended and gotten a insert or 2 from a pack.
Now, years ago, Topps had the E-Pack. I forget if it had an official name or if that's what it was.
E-Topps?
How bad is shipping on that? Because I remember they were ridiculous, like stupid.
So
expensive.
you have to transfer it to your ComC account, and you can either sell it on our marketplace or you can have it shipped to you direct. Once everything is prepared, our shipping times are about a week or 2 currently, I believe. So, of course, it depends on where you live. I mean, if you live in Poland or Russia right now, it may be much more delayed than, say, if you live in Portland.
But so if I already have a package ready to go with ComC, I just haven't cashed out and have you guys send it to me. I send this stuff over there. Basically, it's free shipping because it's coming in with everything else at that point.
That's my understanding. Yep. And I mean, for example, so I ordered 30 or so cards middle of last month, and they're shipping today at the cheapest $4.99 shipped cost.
Gotcha.
There's faster levels, of course. We can have it out the door in a week, depending on what it is or how many you want.
That's awesome.
What you pay for.
So yeah, go check out the Upper Deck blog if you're not familiar with how the E-Packs work. If you are, now you have the AEW cards as an option, if that is your cup of tea and that's fits into your collecting style, if you're into the digital and whatnot. Glad to see that they've got that license and they're doing some new things to try to generate some interest.
Maybe I won't show you guys my PayPal and Address.
So the last topic of the night, Steel City released a sell sheet for 2022 Diamond Kings. As much as I love Diamond Kings, not as much as Steph do, but I do. Usually we wouldn't be discussing a sell sheet in Hobby Talk, but it is Diamond King, so we kind of have to. It's obligatory. My biggest problem with Diamond Kings, I looked at the sell sheet and it just looks like last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. It's like, see Ginter, Allen, and I mean, Gypsy Queen's another one that I hear a lot about. It never looks different enough. I mean, Ginter always looks the same to me. It's never.
But is there anything really wrong with that?
Well, yeah,
you know that you're going to have Bat Kings. You know you're going to have Jersey Kings. You know you're probably going to have your dual, triple, quadruple over a Fide. Relics, autos, booklets, whatnots.
But if I had it last year, do I need it this year? I mean, do I need it 8 years in a row if it's
I need
very
at least 6
similar?
boxes.
That's like eating McDonald's every day for a week and a half.
Don't judge my diet.
And you can't even argue that they're showing the new logos because they're not. So I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. It exists. It's something new to open before the next Topps product comes out, I suppose. But I don't know. I mean, clearly Steph enjoys it. It's a fun product at a certain price point. Thankfully, I don't think the hobby version is terribly expensive. I think last year's is still pretty close to the MSRP. So I haven't seen the sell sheet that you're referring to. I don't know how close it looks, but
so there's
a lot of that stuff does start to look the same, though.
Yeah, what I do like about Diamond Kings, Panini back in 2012 and 13, I believe, had the Cooperstown, which was a great product for non-licensed. Why?
13.
Because so many of the players were, most of the players were dead, which already works well for the black and white. Some of the more modern players like Cal Ripken and Ricky Henderson worked well in the black and white. No logos. You don't need them for that particular design. What I like about Diamond King's checklist each year is that you get some of the Eddie Collins, Al Simmons, some of the players from the pre-war tobacco era that aren't represented in today's hobby. And it's not that there's no market for them. They just don't make them. Yeah, I mean, even the superstars that aren't named Babe Ruth, like the Jimmy Foxes of the world, which weren't that far behind Babe Ruth as far as overall, stats and whatnot. You just don't see a bunch of them, but you do see them in Diamond Kings every year.
Opportunity to get a Ralph Kiner Bat King.
Where's your penny sleeve, sir?
A Stan Musial Jersey King.
It's just the set just looks so repetitive. And again, I'm not as big of a fan as Steph, but I've spent my fair share of money on Diamond Kings, not opening boxes, but on the secondary market because I love the blue and the plum flame, the plum framed parallels, the red. I love those where they're not embossed, but they're raised. It's actually a frame around the card, and they really are pretty.
I do believe it's like 2 gray per hobby and 1 base plum parallel. There's a slight framed. It takes on an artistic set. It almost feels like the cards are painted almost.
This is a product that we like to open at a decent price, and honestly, Tony, my son, really enjoys it. Of course, then we always get back to the fact that there are no logos on the cards. But
do those ones need it to appreciate the?
No, well, that's the thing. It's nice to buy and appreciate it. However, you do realize that it's not there. It does a pretty good job of hiding it based on the artwork.
I mean, look at the Ricky here.
Decide to use. Yeah, no, that looks pretty good. You wouldn't even look at it, but. Generally speaking, it's nice to open it because it is such a change from flagship, especially with flagship and the white borders. This comes out, maybe a month or 2 later. It's something different. Even Donruss, when that comes out, it always has that white, boring border on it too. So you get something with a little more color, a little pop to it, a little creativity. It's nice that it's not terribly expensive. I mean, compared to like Court Kings is like I think Court Kings is essentially Diamond Kings, right, for basketball.
Mhm.
And they've made that like a medium range product where it's like, just a handful of cards, I think, and it's like really expensive. So for this to be somewhere in that $115 range, even less, it's nice to see. And also, of course, here you have an autograph of Wander Franco, who's going to be 5 times as much in any Topps product than it would cost
O'Neal
for him
Cruz
to be in
as well.
Yeah, it's going to cost way more for any of those autos, under a Topps banner. So, you have a shot at all the same guys, even some of the older guys that you don't see in the top sets. It doesn't bother me. It's a nice option for sure. But yeah, I definitely see the repetitiveness with the design, which I think is Ben's point.
Well, like this photo frame, I swear, was one of the short print indicators from a 2017.
Yeah, it was used on the back.
somewhere there.
Used on the backs, right?
And for what it's worth, for those that don't speak French, that's the 5 most beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still buying this product because I love it, and I'll get a few of the framed relic, or excuse me, some of the framed parallel
Kings, sure.
team sets, and yeah, that Ricky Anderson's phenomenal. So it's not like it's just. To me, Diamond Kings is another one similar to Ginter and Gypsy Queen. I mean, there's enough differences there for me, but I know why some other collectors suggest otherwise.
Well, and I just like that it's a pretty simple set. I mean, there's no like 800 prisms, or there's not a chrome parallel. There's not. It's a base. Thankfully, they got rid of the minis. There's the framed borders that are nice when you get them, or the one of ones like I did 2 years ago. And the inserts aren't too difficult to complete. I mean, 20, 30 cards each, and like 5 inserts. Now, yeah, sure, there's the super short prints trying to capitalize on the downtown effect with, I think last year they changed Aurora from a regular to a short print edition. But for the most part, it's pretty simple. And I mean, I have the last 5 years master complete. I'm missing some 16s.
There's usually about 50 pre-war dead ball era guys.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Hall of Famers probably in the 60s. The Yogi Berra is probably leading
Kluszewski. I hope
60s.
To God that they pick a different Stan Musial photo. They last 3 have been the same photo. I think Yogi got used twice. So there's some repetitiveness on the player photos themselves, but the players that they do choose, you're not just getting 100 current guys.
Yeah, if you like that era, if that's part of your PC, or you want to extend your PC and create something new, you could do worse than going into Diamond Kings and just picking off, whatever the checklist has, 50 guys from that era, the Walter Johnsons and Christy Mathewsons, and some of the great names of 100+ years ago. And you don't get that in very many products outside Diamond King, so I don't want that to be a negative. My only real negative was, man, it just looks so repetitive. If you told me that was 2019 Diamond Kings, I wouldn't know the difference.
I would.
Well, that's different. You sleep and breathe and eat it, and
it's one of the like people have Flagship as their huge hope. No, the season ain't ready until it's Diamond King's time.
When does it release?
I think early April.
Usually. So next week's guest, as we wrap up the show tonight, we're going to reach out to Kyle again over at Collector Caps and see if we can have him join us. We also have Andrew Renault next week. Collector Caps are the little plastic toppers that go on. No, he's coming on the 30th, 2 weeks.
30th, okay.
The Collector Caps are the little plastic things that pinch the top of top loaders, slide over the top, so that you don't have to use any type of a tape if you want that. They're kind of neat. So we'll kind of find out what his moniker is, no Scotch tape. So we'll see what his thoughts are, what kind of led him to create this. And they're a little more on the expensive end, but if you want to pinch top loaders clothes, even if it's just for your own personal use, it's an interesting thing. I would definitely suggest buying in bulk just to buy down the shipping costs. But
I like the novelty of it.
Yeah, it's something different. They got like a neon and a glow in the dark and a lot of different colors to choose from. And you can buy multi-packs of different colors. So we'll get his thoughts and find out, pricing model and scalability, and if he's going to have anything else coming down the pipeline that will also, kind of fit into that. Because usually that's what it is. It's a product or is it a company? So we'll find out from him hopefully next week. And then, we have Jeffrey Zelski on the 30th, Alex Visioni on August 6th, and then Topps Living artist Jared Kelly on April 13th. And we're going to see if Matt Major can hop on as well at
Maybe have
Cardboard Stats.
an announcement at that time if Topps gets their printer up and running.
So, any final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here tonight?
Not particularly. Another fun one.
Well, we appreciate your time, Ben, this evening at Cardboard Icons. Do you still write on the blog? And if so, where can we find that?
Yep, I'm at cardboardicons.com. It's been a couple weeks. I've had kind of a tough time over here, but I'll get back to it here in a little bit.
Awesome. I mean,
427.
That's what made you such the icon that you are in the hobby. We really appreciate your time and your insight tonight. As always, it's awesome to have you on, especially since you and I don't always see eye to eye on things. It's nice to have the other perspective.
Sure.
So that we can give the listeners both sides, not just my opinion, but the exact opposite on some topics. So we're live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and review our show on all platforms. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at About the Cards. You can follow Steph at Junkwax Twins, Ben and Gary at Cardboard Icons, myself at Our Trading Cards. Please share your hobby stories, great pulls. Send your questions our way and keep collecting.
See y'all next week.